we're gonna be able to.
This kind of magic only lasts so long. Let's celebrate the little moments while they're still little.
With a gun inside. We also have not seen any movement inside the car as well.
Watching. We're gonna finish
watching. Dave's comment about rendering aid. We have an ambulance right next to our truck here, just about 25 feet away, waiting to zip in if there should be any gunfire. But I have noticed that a number of police officers have made their way towards the rear of this phalanx of police vehicles. There goes another flashbang.
Yeah, they just set off a flashbang, Miriam, right in the back of the vehicle. Clearly, that's why they moved the robot to get it away a little bit. Setting up another flashbang. We'll bring in Bruce Thomas now to get his thoughts on this. Perhaps we're trying to see if there's any startling or movement from the suspect that's sitting in that passenger seat. Bruce, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. It's a distractionary device to see if they can get any movement. Another thing which they may be waiting on, with the officer-involved shooting that occurred, there may have been some airbag deployments, and which will complicate getting to the suspect in that vehicle.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought I did see. Go ahead, Miriam.
Yes, we see that robot now just appears to be peering into that car now, getting a closer look of the individual inside. Now it's moving back slightly. These officers have all the time in the world to examine this car, as long as they can stay out of the line of fire and ensure that nobody else gets hurt. There's no reason at all to rush in and try and take this person down. So they're using their time, gathering intelligence, gathering as much information as possible before they move. But I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, you can see them from the air shot as well. All the different cars that are there standing by. On our side, we have emergency vehicles waiting to go in if needed. But right now, everything still seems very still, waiting and watching to see what information comes through that robot and whether that suspect is showing any signs of life. Whether, of course, we know that if there is any strength at all in a desperate person with a gun, they can use their last ounce of energy to fire that shot. It's why when officers take down a suspect, they go to immobilize him or her. They want to make sure that that person cannot get off another shot and hitting an innocent person or a law enforcement officer. So it's extremely important to make sure that person is absolutely not going to move, not going to be able to get that gun and fire back.
But then
that's... Go ahead.
I was just going to imagine that that camera from the robot should be able to tell if the man moved even an inch or flinched. It could compare pictures, and if that hand, what do they call them? The thing to make them flinch.
Oh, the flashbang grenade?
Yeah, yes, thank you. It'll be able to see if he flinched at all or moved.
They also have eyeballs on them. They have men or individuals in both Bearcats that are sitting there watching the suspect. There may be some things in the way, as Bruce pointed out. There may be some airbag situations, too, from the bullets that went through there could have set off the airbags, which could hinder a little bit of that. But I'm sure they're watching from whatever viewpoints that they can get. So we have somebody in the Bearcat in the front, one in the side, and then the robot as well. So when they set that flashbang off, they're probably all watching the best they can to see if there's any kind of flinching from the suspect at all.
And that must have been the white movement, the paper that we thought was paper at the time. That must have been
So
the
anyway,
airbag.
But Miriam is making a good point, and that is they do have all the time in the world. All it takes is one bullet. He just has to pull his trigger finger.
Right.
And one more bullet, and that's a sizable
he just has
gun.
to pull the trigger.
Might be capable of penetrating more than a regular
Bullet
handgun.
of that.
So they have to be cognizant of that as well. So they're being extremely cautious here, but for good reason, because if this is the person they think it is, he has killed before.
Cautious here.
folks, now the camera is looking into the back seat, it looks like, of that car. What are your thoughts?
You know, it's just trying to get vantage points to see what's going on. Like Miriam said, there's no rush to deal with the problem. Time is on the side of law enforcement, and I know people get very frustrated, but we do everything by the numbers.
Of course, officer safety is number one.
So here we are. We are approaching 4:30 in the afternoon. This is a pursuit that broke out around 3 o'clock or so, and that's when we jumped on it. And it was an incredible pursuit.
Began in Downey, and this passenger the passenger had the gun. The driver eventually surrendered. But multiple police officers were opening fire. It started in Downey, then Bell Garden Police entered, and the LA County Sheriff's Department entered. And it's possible murder suspect, obviously, and a very dangerous man. But we did see a woman get out of the vehicle, the driver, and surrender. And now it's just the passenger in that car right now.
Yeah, some really dramatic moments. Not just when he was, but the pursuit was dramatic enough. Yeah. But when the passenger started hanging out the window with his giant handgun, that was like surreal. It was unbelievable.
You don't see that very often during the pursuit.
Firing at officers. Officers had to return fire. The Downey Police Department started to pull him over because they felt that this might be the suspect in that high-profile murder that took place at a convenience store where the suspect was seen on surveillance camera running into the convenience store. In a matter of seconds, he shot the clerk down and ran back out and took off. It's off camera when he runs into the convenience store if he was dropped off or somebody was waiting for him in a car, but it's speculated that somebody might have been waiting for him, and he just jumped right back in and took off. Was this the woman who was driving this vehicle? We don't know yet. But there's a distinct possibility that was the case. So this is what we're dealing with. The suspect now in the passenger seat, he has been still for quite some time after a volley of gunfire that went into this Prius. The woman got out. She was able to walk out of the Prius after the shooting and surrender. The robot is on the move again, but the suspect has not moved.
See that camera backing up? Perhaps they'll do another flash bang. Who knows what they're going to do next? But I think
they're going to try to get it up on the curb because you notice its tread lifted up. So I think he's going to try to turn it and put it up on the curb and get a better look from the previous angle that it had, just right by the driver's door. We're going to try to line that up and get one more look inside.
Fortunately, this is all happening in where there's little traffic and just an industrial area. So that is, thankfully, that's one thing that's in their favor.
So there you see the SEB, Special Enforcement Bureau, that is with the Sheriff's Department, that is set up in the third barricade on the right-hand side. They're just staged, ready to go. They're waiting for the word when to go in. And then that's when you'll probably see them move forward and check on that suspect. There are individuals in the other two barricades as well, looking directly into the vehicle, watching him carefully to see if there's any movement at all. 2 flashbangs we've heard go off. One just recently, a matter of a couple of minutes ago. We don't know what the results of that were, if it was any movement at all from the suspect that's in that passenger side seat up front. And the K9 units are ready to go as well.
And they've had the drone and also the robot. And we're going to perhaps, there we go, show you this moment where the shooting began. You said officer jump out of his car, right there, right behind his door. And that you see the civilian car back up away, and those shots are fired from that Prius.
Yeah, those shots are coming from the police officer shooting into the Prius. And you notice he's directing his gunfire towards the passenger side. There you see the driver then trying to give up, but there's still gunfire going into the vehicle, but they can't see the driver's side. They can't see her hand sticking out of the vehicle. Then she's back, and she's probably getting down because the gunfire is coming into both sides of the car now. And these officers are on the right-hand side of this patrol unit, taking an angle that won't hit bystanders because if they stay directly behind the car, it could go directly into the truck that was in front of the Prius. Now, her hands are out. She's giving up. You notice no movement from the passenger side, but the driver's side, her hands are up. That is a female who was driving the vehicle, trying to get away from the police. She eventually got out of the car, walked out, was able to walk out on her own, back up, and they took her into custody. She did have blood on her arm, her legs, her feet.
We don't know if she was actually shot or that's from the passenger suspect. We don't know exactly what condition she is, but she seemed to be walking fine.
So since then, obviously the civilians have gotten out of the way. We've moved Bearcats up. 3 Bearcats have arrived on the scene from the Special Enforcement Bureau with the Sheriff's Department. 2 of them have gathered around the car, and 1 is sitting in the back right there as a stage and prepare to move in on the suspect.
And those Bearcats have been there for about 40 minutes now surrounding that car. And there is a third one you can see on the right-hand side of your screen ready to go in as well. The robot camera seems to be further away now. Maybe it's done its job, and I believe we'll hear soon the condition of the suspect.
Yeah, the robot is back.
David, what I was going to interject was what you've seen is they've been all regular personnel, as we'll call them, out of the operating area, and they've all been replaced by SEB tactical deputies at this point.
Highly trained, highly capable. These guys are very skilled. I actually did a whole SWAT academy with them. Boy, it was a while ago.
I bet that was eye-opening.
I couldn't survive it today, but that was when I was a little bit younger, and I tell you, it was brutal. These guys are amazing. As how hard they train. It's highly competitive to get on the unit, and they are habitually training and getting better and better, and they have tactics that are quite, frightening, to be honest.
Look at what they had to do just
if you were a bad
today.
guy, you don't want these guys coming and finding you. You don't have much of a chance against them. And they are very proud of this unit, and they're considered one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world. In fact, in the academy that I took with the SEB, there were folks coming in from France, from Italy. There were Navy SEALs in that academy. That shows you the respect that this group has when it comes to how prepared they are, how good they are, because Navy SEALs are coming to the LA Sheriff's Department to get special tactical training.
Interesting.
Yeah, so these
We're
guys
so
are
fortunate they're here.
Yeah, they're very capable, and if they show up and you're a bad guy, that's the last thing you want to see.
Looks like that robot has gone away, and it's right there standing by.
Yeah, it's kind of staged a little bit further away. I wonder if it has a good, because it has a camera that can push way in, so maybe it has a better angle right there.
And we say that K9, he was on standby, or she was on standby, and that's kind of shut down for now. You see it?
The K9 is right there.
Okay.
Right, see the guy moving?
Oh, that's the long
backwards?
leash that he's holding.
Yeah, he's holding that long leash.
Okay.
Yeah, that leash right there, that's the K9's leash.
Okay.
So they're staged and ready to go as well. All these guys, and there's the blue gloves that Bill Thomas was talking about. These guys are prepared to administer aid when they get there, when given the green light to move in, but they're also capable of being tactical officers as well. There's a K9.
Maybe they'll bring that in.
And he is standing out there.
Yeah, David, I think you're going to see a move right about now. It seems like they formulated this. They're very confident the suspect is incapacitated, and they are forming a team to go in.
Yeah, it looks that way.
You're right.
An HD shot. We're going to see that quickly.
Yeah, okay. It does seem like the physicality has changed.
They've been waiting for
the
an
K9
hour.
unit
They've
does
been.
seem to be out there, kind of isolated. They seem like they're ready to go.
Hey, turn
Notice,
27.
the group of
Okay,
officers,
Mom.
You don't have to
here we go.
nebulizer your
Yeah, it does seem
The
like
spacer.
they're about to go in.
Good night, Mom.
Yeah, because you saw the other officers stand back and just let these special units do their thing.
Well, I wonder if they're going to kind of get in their stack and kind of go in as well, maybe using the Bearcat as cover. But let's see what happens. It does almost appear that the K9 might be the first hit, but we don't know yet. It's just speculation.
Yeah, I think they're going to deploy the K9 first, see if they get a reaction to possibly, the Malamos are such strong dogs.
Those cars was stopping. And they those
him
traffic,
or her into custody.
they were
or under
stopping
age.
in
All right,
traffic.
you're right. They're going to use that
They were
Bearcat as a
waiting for
protection.
a long
Yeah,
time, for about
Bearcats moving
40
up slowly.
minutes
The guys are behind
now.
it, using it for cover, taking a great deal of precaution. And keep in mind, the Bearcats up front, there are people looking directly into the car in case something happens. So there's direct communication between these guys in the front Bearcats and the guys in the Bearcats back here. And they are going to
And now they're going to have to
The K9 is ready
try
That man on the roof there, you see
boxing
him at the ready
that.
as well.
in the turret. He is covered, ready to go.
What
He's
car
going to have a
is
good
it?
vantage point there.
Toyota Prius in.
Man, the dog is really going now. He's ready to go.
There we go.
They let him go. Let him look. Okay, brace yourself, though. Okay, he's pulling on the suspect. The suspect is not moving.
They are strong.
They're very, very strong.
Look at that.
Very strong
Oh, my
dogs.
goodness.
Okay, he's pulling the suspect. We may have to pull the shot out just in case. If we do, we're not doing it because, we want to frustrate you. We just don't want you to see something you shouldn't see. So we're going to be very careful about the shot. Right now, the dog is inside the cockpit of the car, pulling on the suspect. You can see movement from the suspect and the dog pulling the suspect, but so far, no retaliation from the suspect at all, which is a sign that the suspect may very well be incapacitated or even dead.
And they're moving in on the passenger side there right now.
With the shield.
The shield.
Looking inside. The dog is pulled out. The long leash. He did his job. His job is over with.
The dog, the K9 SWAT dog did his job. Good try, dog.
All right.
Good try.
Clearly, the suspect is not a threat.
Have you seen the commercial in Chase
Here,
advertisement?
he may not even be
The
alive.
big commercial.
But the suspect is now out. Okay. We're going to pull the shot out a little bit.
You might so.
So now the suspect is behind the Prius. It is in front of the back Bearcat. And this is the point where they will begin to administer aid. You notice some of the officers or the deputies are looking inside the car. They've checked the car. There's nobody else in it. And now it's time to deliver aid. They'll probably pull the ambulance up now. Bruce, what did you think about that?
They were using the dog distractionary device while the officers approaching the other side, but also wanted to see if the suspect had a reaction. In this case, I don't think he had a reaction. I think the canine was tugging on his arm and possibly biting him, and there was no reaction. And when the officers approached and they made entry into the cockpit of the vehicle, I hate to say it, but I think the suspect might be dead.
Yeah, and okay, so this is interesting, Bruce. You notice the officers, the deputies all standing around the suspect. They don't have to do that, but is this intentionally to kind of, out of respect, so the cameras aren't on them, just to keep them covered a little bit?
To some degree, but also you got to remember it is an active crime scene, so this area has to be processed.
Okay.
Interesting how they use the dog as a distraction, and that could
Probably a dual purpose.
Right.
Right, and you did notice while we were watching that dog do his thing, they were coming up on the other side of the vehicle.
Wow.
All right, so the suspect is on the ground. That's where that group of officers, deputies, are gathered around the suspect right now. They're administering aid. I imagine at this point maybe they'll bring in the ambulance, but I'm not sure because if he's deceased and there's nothing they can do, then they'll probably handle it a little
Right,
differently.
because he was shot and bleeding, and that was quite a long time to be in that car.
All right, so this...
Yeah, they're going to have burn and fire respond further up into the operational area now and render aid.
All right, so there's a lot of questions that remain to be answered. Who is this guy? Is he the one that was seen in that convenience store with a giant handgun that killed the clerk inside the store? The one that we saw run in and run out quickly. Look at on the right-hand side, the suspect on the far right, that was from the convenience store earlier this week where he shot and killed somebody. And then the middle shot is a still of him holding the handgun out from this particular pursuit. And the whole thought was Downey PD was trying to pull this Prius over because they felt that the suspect inside this car
That is a
was the same
suspect,
person that
if
see
you
on the
know
far
his
right-hand
name.
side.
It does appear that is the same gun.
Yeah, it's pretty clear. So that suspect may be deceased. Nevertheless, he is out of the vehicle, he is on the ground, and they're administering aid. This part of this pursuit is coming to an end, and now there he is. Okay, so we want you to watch this closely. That's the suspect. He runs up to the convenience store, runs inside. That's from the camera inside the convenience store. There he is, just casually walking in, pulls out the gun, and he starts firing. He didn't steal anything. He just ran in, shot the clerk, and ran out. Clearly, that was his intention.
And a witness said that perhaps he was dropped off, picked up, and that could have been that driver today.
Yeah,
we don't know.
The speculation on whether or not that person that was driving the vehicle is the same person that might be involved with the other crime. We just don't know. That's one of the many questions here.
Miraculously, though, no officers were injured, thankfully, and also the civilians that were so close to that shooting right during the pursuit. Directly behind the shooter, that was a civilian car that had the wherewithal in that moment of panic to back away.
Yeah, what a remarkable afternoon. It's been a violent afternoon here in Southern California. All this going down in Vernon when it started in Downey with a hail of gunfire. Also, what I think is almost remarkable is the driver of this vehicle was able to surrender and get out after that shooting. After seeing all the bullets flying through that car, she survived and got out. She was bloody, but it appears that none of her vitals were hit. It's unbelievable. Unbelievable. So, and you know, we'll go over some of the details with this, and of course, there's a lot of questions that remain when it comes to what happens from here with this investigation. Who are these people? And if this is the person involved with that convenience store hit, what was the basis behind that? What was the motivation? Why did he do it? Was he paid to do it by somebody else?
And Bruce Thomas, any final thoughts on the situation?
You know, now what we're going to see are hours and hours of investigation. You have multiple personnel who were involved in the initial incident from different agencies. Ultimately, what you saw was the professionalism, the training of the police officers and the sheriff's deputies, and that's what we expect from our personnel.
Right. Bruce, thank you so much for helping us on our coverage. Once again, you've been invaluable. And then Miriam Hernandez, you are standing by on the ground nearby. What's happening where you are?
Yes, a far different scene now than what we had been watching for the previous hour. Now, a number of officers, deputies are there clustered around the car, as you can see, and we are waiting to hear further word on the condition of the suspect. My apologies in advance. You've been talking and bringing everybody updates as you have seen them. From this vantage point, we cannot see what you have seen, and because of all the chopper noise here, it's been hard to listen in to everything that you've seen. In an abundance of caution, Vernon PD expanded the crime scene. So we had to get in our truck and move back so that we'd be further away from where this incident was taking place, where this standoff was taking place. That is in an abundance of caution. When bullets fly, they keep on going until something stops them. And you know that bullets can go a long distance. So not sure if they were concerned about the gunman inside the car, or perhaps even the deputies firing if that became necessary. But they did move us back and tell us that the crime scene now is here at Vernon Avenue, where just south of where the car has been stopped. We're waiting to get a debrief now from whichever agency, I guess the Sheriff's Department, to tell us exactly what happened there in those final moments. The waiting game, the standoff lasting for quite a while. There was new movement they had been watching and monitoring with that robot. We saw the robot going in, getting a very close-up shot of any movement that may have continued in the car after a time as the car had been stopped. And then, of course, the two flashbangs to see whether that passenger, that gunman, rather, would react to that loud noise. That would be a clue as to whether that person was still conscious or not, whether that person had suffered any gunshot wounds in the fracas between the between the pursuing officers and the gunman. We do not know his condition yet. We're waiting to hear from the people who have gotten close to and to have been informed. We now see an ambulance moving closer to the scene. You'll see it come up in the shot in a few moments. We don't know whether this is the ambulance that will be addressing any possible wounds to the suspect or transporting him, but we do see both an ambulance, paramedics, and a fire truck from the city of Vernon moving towards the location. Again, those deputies are at the scene of the vehicle. They're just standing there right now. We see the paramedics approach. They're there on the corner of Bandini and what is this street here? Fruitland. And just waiting to see what happens next. Yeah. So David and Ellen, we're watching what you're watching, and they're okay. Now we see the ambulance coming into our picture, and you likely can see it, from Air 7 much more clearly. We'll see whether they have a wounded person that they will be transporting, or whether, in fact, this person has succumbed to his injuries.
Miriam, thank you very much.
Back to you, Ellen and David. Yeah.
Quite a day, and to see the culmination at the very end, with the canine going in to distract that suspect to see if he'll flinch, and then the special agents coming in from the other side. It was quite a sight to see that.
Yeah.
It's
been a dramatic afternoon here in Southern California because of the terrible violence that so many civilians found themselves in the middle of, and police officers as well, and deputies as well, when it comes to this very violent suspect. The way he so coldly killed somebody earlier this week, that is in fact the same suspect, to the way he hung out the window of the passenger side, just blatantly firing at officers. So they had no choice but to return fire. And this is a culmination of all of that violence. It appears that the suspect is clearly down. We don't know if he's alive. The woman driving the vehicle, is in custody. She looked to be injured, but she is alive. We don't know. We don't think anybody else was hurt in all of this, but it certainly came close in a lot of ways.
Watching these paramedics, and we'll have to see if there's some urgency there or what's going to transpire here.
Our producer thinks that they've spotted an IV, so they've hooked an IV up to the suspect. So they're doing what they can to keep him alive. Yet you see the SWAT officer holding the IV. He is standing right in. Oh, okay, yeah.
Okay.
That's what I'm talking about. The deputy with his back to the Bearcat, the furthest Bearcat. He's the one just bending over right now. Yeah, he's holding an IV in his hand. So they're rendering aid. So he's alive. And they're doing what they can. We don't want to show you too much. Clearly, there's red down there. The suspect is bleeding. But they are rendering aid. And
They're rendering aid.
they're doing their best to keep him alive.
They're rendering aid.
The
They're doing the
special
best to get
blue
him
gloves,
alive.
and they're trained paramedics as well. So some of them are especially cross-trained.
So
They're
apparently
trained
they're
as
gonna put him on a
paramedics
backboard,
as well. That is a
They're going to
ambulance.
transport the suspect as best they can. These paramedics do seem to be working with some urgency now, moving around the suspect, getting him strapped in. SCB members are there as well, helping out. So there he goes. We're going to be careful here. You see him shirtless. He also has a bandage around his head. Perhaps he has a head injury, a head wound from the shooting. There is some red there. They're about to transfer him into the ambulance, but he is on the gurney right now, strapping him into the gurney. Boy, is that blood on the ground?
I can't tell.
That is something. Clearly he's been hit and badly injured, but he's alive. At least by that shot right there, we know that the suspect is alive. They have oxygen going into him, an IV going into him. He is wrapped up. They cut into his pants. They took his shirt off. They're doing what they can on this site, and then Vernon Fire is going to transport him to the hospital. Well, to try to keep him alive. There's so many questions revolving him, who he is, why did he do what he did, if that is in fact him on that video from earlier in the week.
And this vast crime scene, because the shooting happened away from this, and then it'll be interesting to see, how long it'll take for them to clear that area.
Miriam said that there will be some kind of a debrief for the news folks that are out there right now. We don't know if it's from Vernon PD, from Downey PD, or the Sheriff's Department, but hopefully somebody will answer whatever they can say at this point, because as we often know with these investigations, there's little information up front. It takes days and weeks for that information to finally become available. Perhaps they can tell us some of their motivations and why they did what right now. They obviously aren't going to be able to tell us a whole lot about the murder investigation from earlier this week. Okay, so we're going to continue to watch this as paramedics render aid and transport that suspect to the hospital. But he is alive. Remarkably, he is alive. As you watch that video and see the gunfire going through that car, I think it's rather remarkable. But the driver was able to get out of the car and basically walk to safety and be taken into custody. But the suspect being alive still is pretty incredible as well.
And Miriam Hernandez has been near that scene. She's told to back away a little bit, but you have more information, Miriam? Or...
Yes, no real information, just observations. We see that ambulance pulling up just a little bit. We're not sure where that ambulance may be headed, but the closest trauma center is likely County USC. I understand from the shot that you had from Air 7, you could see the suspect being treated by paramedics and deputies
congratulations.
also assisting with an IV and making sure that he was secured on the gurney before they lifted him into that ambulance. It's now heading away from the scene. We are not sure yet when we will be getting more details about how this all unfolded. The sheriff's deputy I just talked to said that they might be dispensing the information from Downey, where all this originated, but we will try and get as much information from the scene as we can. We now see that armored vehicle leaving the scene as well. This scene is being cleared, so we expect that we'll be able at least to approach some of the vehicles that are still there, some of the personnel that is still there, and find out what we can about just what happened and the process they went through in order to resolve this matter with no further injury to anybody else, to civilians, or to any police personnel. David, Ellen.
All right, Miriam Hernandez, thank you. It is Mark Brown and Michelle Tuzzi here as we begin Eyewitness News at 5 with this breaking story we've been following now for the better part of 2 hours.
They've been following now
for
the better part of about
custody
2 hours or so.
On the streets of Southern California, a pursuit with a murder suspect here. The passenger firing out the window right in the middle of traffic. Unsuspecting drivers caught in the middle of it all. Police returning fire, shattering the glass on the back of that Prius. The woman who was driving the car tried to get away at one point, but she, covered in blood, gives up. Surrendered to police. The passenger, though, the one with the gun, still inside. Now the SWAT team is at the scene. They get there, they use tear gas, and a robot to get close to find out the fate of that suspect who has been shooting it out with police. I'm Mark Brown. This is Eyewitness News at 5.
And I'm Michelle Tuzzi, and these are live pictures now from Air 7, or actually, I'm sorry, not live pictures, but these are pictures from earlier when the SWAT team moved in. This was just moments ago, taking that suspect, the passenger, who had a weapon out of the car. Again, we have been following this just before 3 p.m. We don't know the condition of that passenger. We do know at the very least he was gravely injured. We do know that that passenger is described as a murder suspect, and now we are seeing live pictures of that transport. And here is video of the crime that this person may be involved in. This may be the person that is being taken to a hospital right now. The suspect in a convenience store clerk in the murder of a convenience store clerk in Downey. It happened Tuesday night. This was captured on surveillance store video. You can see the suspect going in and then running out. And when we saw those first images yesterday, it was very disturbing because he ran in with a very large handgun. He was in and out in a matter of seconds, and it was almost just like an assassination took place. Right. The store clerk, Gurpreet Singh, a Marine and a beloved person in his community, was killed. And now we are at this situation in the city of Vernon where a police pursuit ended perhaps with that suspect that you're seeing here on the right involved.
Yeah, the similarity, of course, as you notice, this revolver that was used in the murder of Mr. Singh, similar, very similar to the revolver that was pointed out the window and fired at pursuing police. The suspect looking similar as well, that long-barreled handgun in both instances, and the suspect that they were looking for was, in fact, a murder suspect. We are trying to pin this down and determine for sure. The man who's in that ambulance now is the suspect in the murder of that store clerk, Mr. Singh.
And we continue to look at live pictures now of the transport of this murder suspect to a hospital, being followed by authorities behind there. And as the investigation continues on scene, and it was a very alarming scene for a lot of motorists who witnessed that gunfire today, a shootout between authorities pursuing authorities and that murder suspect, and then that pursuit coming to an end at Downey Road and Bandini Boulevard at 2:45 p.m. The female driver surrendering, getting out with blood on her pants. And shortly thereafter, the SWAT team was called in, tear gas was used, a canine was called in, and they eventually were able to get that suspect out of the car. At first, it looked like the person may have been deceased, but apparently the person is still showing signs of life and is now being taken to a hospital. Eyewitness News reporter Miriam Hernandez has been following this scene from the ground level, and she joins us now with a live report. Miriam?
Yes, right now over here you can see to your left number of the police units involved in the scene for motorists because this is the getaway. But the shooting did not stop. There was an exchange that was going on. Grenade on the scene, at least rendered some. But this remains a crime scene. This main fire. This individual was just to get him, but he was determined not.
Dear MS, from day one, you've tried to define me.
But I never invited you in. It's my life.
Yeah, we're on this street where neighbors say Allison Hart's lived with her parents, and they say they weren't surprised to see her name released in relation to this news because there's been a lot of police activity in this very quiet neighborhood, and they were concerned with what might have been going on in that home. Now, I want to get right to that dramatic video of that chase, because the chase ended with a shootout and standoff in Vernon, with Hart allegedly driving the man suspected of killing a Downey liquor store owner. That suspect fired numerous rounds from a large caliber revolver at pursuing officers and deputies, and has been identified, as you mentioned, as Dylan Lindsay of Torrance. Now, Lindsay does remain hospitalized after suffering from at least 2 gunshot wounds, one of which is believed to be a self-inflicted gunshot wound to his head. Now, at one point, we saw the suspected driver, Allison Hart, with blood on her, get out of the Toyota Prius and surrender to authorities. And not long after that, officers were able to make their way to the car and put a canine in his distraction to make sure he was no longer a threat. Now, again, investigators and witnesses believe that Lindsay is also the suspect wanted in the shooting death of a liquor store owner in Downey. Gurpreet Singh is the liquor store owner's name.
All right.
He was killed earlier this week in an incident captured on surveillance video, but police won't comment on that possible connection. And we do know that Singh's family is holding a funeral service for him tomorrow, but the investigation remains ongoing. We've been trying to talk to neighbors here in Redondo Beach. None of them want to go on camera for fear of retaliation, but they do say that this was a troubled home.
Hello, I'm Mark Brown. Click the ABC7 logo to subscribe to our Eyewitness News YouTube channel.